Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life discussion. We meet every week and we are here with the goal to explore this intersection, this quite interesting intersection between psychology and spirituality. And when we do that, it's almost inevitable to uncover timeless wisdom that will help you and me, all of us here, to live with the greatest sense of meaning and purpose. My name is Marcia Trajano, and with me today are Dr. Anahy Fonseca. Hi, Anahy, and Jussara Korngold. Thank you so much for being here. How are you guys doing?
We are waiting for each other. I'm doing great and much better now that I am with you guys again.
That's awesome. Thank you. Jussara?
Hi everyone, it's a joy. It's so wonderful to be here again, to be part of this conversation, to be the three of us together, and all of you that are just been following us for all those years that we have been joining to discuss this wonderful topic about psychology and spirituality.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you both. Well, our topic today is the ego and the creation of suffering. I know, quite a difficult topic, right? But let's think about it as it was a topic inspired by the profound psychological and spiritual teachings of Joanna de Angelis. And for everyone, if you are a reader, a student of Joanna like I am, you may find more information on this topic in her book, Plenitude, as well as Moments of Health and Consciousness, and many more. But those are the ones that I have read very recently and find that they're very um, easy for us to comprehend, to understand, to delve into this topic. But in those books specifically, she unveils how attachment, fear, and even a sense of a false identity, yes, false identity, they all arise from the ego and they are the culprit. They are responsible for generating the majority of our daily suffering. So, Jussara and Anahy, I was thinking that the plan for conversation today, I would love if we can do this, is to explore this topic from three points. Number one, maybe how the ego creates suffering through, as I mentioned, attachment, fear, and those illusions of identity. But just thought I thought about you, how does spiritual psychology differentiate egoic suffering from soul learning? And finally, how awareness dissolves suffering and restores that emotional and spiritual health. So, Anaid, do you want to get started? Do you want to talk to us? Any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, so hi everyone. So it's a very interesting topic because it's so up to date, right? We are seeing a lot of people suffering anxieties, different types of anxieties, depressions, abuse of alcohol, and many other things, drugs, and this and that. And I was thinking, Marcia, that you said how the ego creates suffering.
Yeah.
And you referred to Joanna about attachments, fear, illusions. So if we go to the definition of ego, Jung's and Joanna definition of ego is the center of consciousness, right? Is the ego. So you talked about false personality, something identities, right?
Yes.
And since I studied the collective, because we are all Jungians very worried these days about the collective and the way that we have been talking here in our podcast about this apocalyptic times, right? When things are being unveiled, and whatever it is that we need collectively to develop more consciousness, to awaken our spiritual consciousness, we have to do now in this time. So that's why we have so much conflict. So, okay, but then how, as you said, how does the ego create suffering?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, aren't we all imprisoned, let's say, within the ego? We could say that the ego is our small consciousness. I'm sorry if somebody will get upset. How come the ego is the small consciousness? Especially the Freudians, probably, that think only about the ego. But we have been talking here, and Joanna cites a lot of this. She uses Jungian concepts like the self, capital S, that people call many times in other theories the higher self, right? So it's actually our spiritual consciousness, we could say, that it's okay in psychic terms, represented, Jung would say, in the psyche by the self. This archetype, this primordial archetype of the unity of that it's in the depths of our unconscious and in connection, immersed in the transpersonal dimension of the psyche, which is the collective unconscious for many people. I think people know more this term, collective unconscious. So, of course, in this level, if it is transpersonal, we are talking about our spiritual level. So, this is so important that we don't have only the ego consciousness. But for many of us, until this day and age that we are living, people think they are only the ego, only this personality, only this body, only this kind of bunch of sensations and learning process that we have here, that we are living. So I would say, I will give you something really showy in a certain way, but I would say that we are kind of stuck in the ego, just for us to make an image, right? Collectively. We think, and a lot of us, and try to really think that we are only what we are here, understand ourselves. And to this day, I think that's amazing. But I have been talking with some, actually, fortunately, is not the majority of people that I talk to. But there are some people, and we are talking about people with a lot of study, PhDs and things like that, that to this day, they don't believe there is the unconscious. Can you believe that? Right? So we are talking only of consciousness. Oh no, what is the unconscious? This doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is something that I can, even medical colleagues, medical personnel from the health system and all of that. I have heard many people say, "Oh, there isn't such thing as the unconscious." That just think people, psychologists, psychiatrists, and other philosophers, whatever. This is philosophy. This is something that you were talking about, the illusion, right? Our false identities. So all of this, and actually, fortunately, as I told you, it's not the majority. I think people are awakening to this reality. Let's step out of the illusion and understand. And I think I would love to listen now to Jussara talk about this spiritist psychology, the point of view that spiritist brings. Because what we are talking is that to get out of this prison cell, what are we doing stuck in the ego? And when we are stuck in the ego, thinking, totally identified with the body, with this personality, I'm not saying, people, that we should oh, okay, now I can, I don't know who I am, and I can be anything and all of that. It's not, of course, not that. But to understand that we are at this moment in time, this personality, this
Yeah.
identity, but we are much, much more than that. And if we get stuck in the ego, of course, we are going to be the ego. If you think it's kind of very proud, it's a part of our psyche that is very proud because the ego develops for adaptation in this life, in this
Yeah.
material life. And it has to struggle a lot since we are babies to survive, to understand father and mother, to understand that they are when we are babies, the ego is developing, that they are the source
Hmm.
of, of our possibilities to grow, to maintain life. So we need them. We need people that take care of us when we are children. Of course, the ego is going to develop trying to, make people happy, to think that I'm so cute, that I'm so nice, that I have nice qualities. So all of this makes the ego very strong. And I'm not saying, when I say strong, I'm not saying healthy exactly. Can be healthy, but if I'm strong in a sense that I'm proud, that I think that I am only this, right,
Hmm.
in this sense, then of course I'm not going to think, is there such a thing as the unconscious?
Yeah.
Because I don't have the power over the unconscious, right?
And,
And I
and
have some a dimension within myself that I don't have control. Imagine that for the ego.
yeah, and I
Go
love,
ahead,
I
Mark.
love, yeah, I love that. And before, Jussara, you talked about it, maybe we can just talk a little bit how I see, or most of us would hear your voice, Anahy, because to me, and I'm trying to unpack it, so help me here, right? Uh, if we go into, say, classic psychology, and we say, okay, tell me, define what is the ego? And ego, we can say, well, it's the I, right? The I that function, that will organize what? My thoughts, my memories, how I perceive myself, how I introduce myself. And when we pivot that to Joanna, then she goes right into what you said, right? The ego also takes the role of this mask of illusions, which is exactly that identity, the false identity, right? Why is it false? Well, because it's based on, say, social conditionings, based on fear, especially in this world that we're living in, right, Anahy and Jussara, insecurity, all those attachments, unresolved trauma, etc., etc. So as it builds those masks based on delusion, it also, with the function of protecting us to this world, to survive this world, it also leads us to a need to, and I'm saying this because that's how you left your discussion, this incredible need to control, this incredible need to possess, this incredible thirst and desire to be recognized, right? And so it is the from that perspective that the ego is actually pushing us to suffer a great deal. But I love to hear from Jussara. Jussara, from a spiritual point of view, what are your thoughts, perhaps, that you can add to this discussion?
Okay, guys, you also bring so so many interesting things. I have a thousand thoughts in my mind that I wanted to share with you. But let's organize things. I
Sure.
think the first thing is we have to start by being open minded.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, it's very easy, can be very comfortable for us and for the ego to say, I can only accept what I see, what I touch, what I understand. We can live in an ostrich complex. I just thought, thought about this one, okay, and I bear with, go with me for a minute. Like, we bury our heads in the sand, and I'm not seeing anything, nothing is happening.
Yeah.
So we cannot live in those times anymore. So the first thing we have to be is to open our minds to new possibilities, to new visions we may not understand. I
Mhm.
don't understand, why am I talking live to you now? I know that there are satellites, wavelengths at place, but I don't see them.
Mhm.
But it's happening, right? So
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is what we have to think about it. I don't see it, but it is happening. So um, I am someone, because, well, like René Descartes used to say, I think, therefore I exist. So I exist. And in the spiritual perspective, this exists goes beyond 60, 70, 80, 100 years of living in just one physical body. So just one in one life, it would be enough for us to, to be here and analyzing things. But can we imagine if we bring into place other experiences? But we have this idea that somehow our lives are represented by that ancient Greek image of the theater, that you have, a mask that is crying, the sadness, and a mask that is laughing is the comedy. And where is the point, and where should we be living? In the middle.
Mhm.
We cannot live life without seriousness. Oh, it's just a comedy, and I cannot live life just, as everything is just a playground. It is
Mhm.
not. So, and this is how, I think in psychology, we have this idea of reconciliation with what we strive in order to survive according to our limited knowledge, or the limited knowledge our personalities, our ego have, with what am I to become. When you come to a child, think about this. I think, even though the child can see, you go to the child and say, you know what, one day you're going to be like this grown-up person. And God forbid, and you point out an elderly person, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm never going to be like that. This is, ancient. This is too much. They can see. Listen, I was you. I lived in your place. I was like a baby. I grown up. When you are going through this process. This is impossible, and this is what we have to think about now when when we are dealing with these questions. And of course they are the perennial questions of life, like where did I come from, what am I doing here, to where am I going, and in terms of understanding, why do I need to be so attached, what led us to be like that, and evolution, progress. There was a time that perhaps we had to be more selfish. The life conditions were so much harder, and it's not like we had this rapport with each other like we have it today. But today it is asking for a new paradigm, and we are still trying to live in the old one. And while I'm trying to live in the old one, not adapting to the new one, I'm going to suffer. I'm going against the current. So I'm going to stop here so that you guys can comment.
I love that, the whole idea that one form of attachment is this inability to transcend our old ways of working. So maybe, I don't know, Anahy, do you want to talk a little bit about what Joanna brings a lot, right? Which is this atavic inheritance, which is things that we bring from our past that we keep going back to it, and we don't even know why we do this. Do you want to talk a little bit about it, and maybe link it to what Jussara was saying, that those this constant going, and I my gesture here is going back, right, trying to fall from my chair. But how do we do this? Why is it so intrinsic in our lives, or many of who we know, to be stuck, as you said, in the ego, but also stuck in the old ways of working, instead of being ready to go into a new way of life, a new paradigm, a new expanded consciousness?
Yeah, wow. I think we have a lot of work to do with the ego,
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of work, because being so proud, and in this vision of dividedness
yeah.
that is being really kind of increasing in this day and age, right? That people get really, I'm not that, I'm not that, I belong to that group and not to to the other, and this on that country and culture. So, okay, when we are here in this life, material life,
Mm,
we are going to have experiences, as you said, and
hmm.
Jussara also. Our egos, they have a really important part in our psyche as our body, right? We need the body to
Hmm.
manifest here so that the soul can, the spirit incarnated, so the soul can learn, can have the experience that it proposed, in before incarnation, right? This
Yeah,
incarnation. So we need the ego, as you said, Marcia, to the functions of the ego,
yeah,
the memory, the thinking process, right? The attention. What am I paying attention to? So to be oriented, right, in time and space and all of that. So all of that and many more are functions of the ego. And as our body has a lot of organs and systems that we need to manifest here so that we can have this experience, grow old and all of that. But the thing is that I think the ego, where I was listening to Jussara, the ego is kind of a synthesis, if we could say, of all our experiences in this life,
hmm,
right? We are growing, we are learning to about the world, about ourselves, how to relate with one another, but also synthesis of all the lives that we have lived before previously, right? Because to live a life is to experience, to have experience, to acquire knowledge from the mind, from the heart, from the, so the soul can evolve, right, Jusada, and can one day we can be like in the angelic level. I hope I get there. I don't know how many billions years, but at some point, what is the time, right? Only for our egos we need, oh, we have the time here,
uh-huh,
we have
uh-huh.
this day, and but for our souls, our spirit, well, we have eternity, right? But for our egos, that it has to deal with this material world and with this kind of small consciousness. I think the ego, Marcia, I would love to hear you guys. I think we kind of, because we lose connection when we
Yeah,
incarnate to the knowledge of our spirit, of course, that it's much more than our small ego, small consciousness.
mhm,
So our higher self, with the knowledge of the self. So because we kind of forget, we lose connection, at least for some time in our lives. That's why getting old, I don't mind getting old because it's cool, because we need to get old. We need
yeah,
all the experience of a lifetime. to do what? To do what Jung and Joanna calls us to do, that it's to understand. Jussara was thinking, was saying that I think, therefore I exist, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The philosopher, the great philosopher that said that. So we need to be aware of ourselves. And in the beginning of this life, the ego gets little by little, is like climbing a stair or whatever. Little by little is getting aware of this personality, this experience, the people that I relate, my family, my father, mother, sister, brothers, and all of that. But since we get older, we have different experiences. We have the brain developing. We have all the different organs and the different experiences. So what's going to happen is that we are going to think better, Jussara. We are going to have a thinking process more sophisticated, if we could say. And then it starts, as Jung says, after we leave, childhood and teenage years, when we get to
hmm,
adulthood. So we are in this time where we have enough connection, even if we don't know that, with our unconscious, and the self, capital S, the higher self, starts kind of calling the ego, so that we start remembering, we start relating to the unconscious, to remembering, in a sense, to having intuitions, for
yeah,
instance, dreaming special dreams. We Jungians call the big dreams, right? Then we have the small dreams about the complexes in daily life, and we have the big dreams, the archetypal dreams, let's say. That is the self calling, that is the soul calling the ego. So to reconnect, to make this reconnection of the small consciousness, our ego, they think it's so great, the ego think it's so cool, it's so proud of itself. So we need to some humility, to be humble with ourselves, right?
hmm,
And try to make this inner journey and to listen to a higher consciousness that exists within ourselves. This is not easy task to do, people. That's a
yeah,
lot of work with the ego, because the ego still thinks, old habits, as Jussara was saying, and still thinks it's so powerful, and that I have to protect and control, as you were saying, control everything, control others, control
hmm,
myself. I don't want to see that and I don't want to relate to this aspect of myself that maybe is actually acting in my life very strongly, that we call the unconscious. But
yeah,
I have to, you talked previously about fear, that
yeah,
Joanna calls us to pay attention in fear. So I keep asking, mainstream, whatever mainstream usually try to control people with fear.
yeah,
So we have fear of aliens, we have fear of one another, we have fear of this and that, spirits and this and that. That's all illusion, because in the end, we are all parts of the creation, the creator, God, as right?
yeah,
Doesn't matter if we are born in this earth or whatever mansion of my father we are born in. The thing is that we are part of this higher intelligence, if we could say, right? And I
hmm,
love to say, hear you said about that.
yeah,
So if we understand that the ego is a synthesis,
yeah,
right, of all our experiences, okay, we can think, wow, that's cool. I have a lot of stuff, material, a lot of
yeah,
knowledge, but I have to be humble, because I have lost temporarily the connection
yeah.
with the higher self.
Can
Go
we,
ahead, Marcia.
yeah, yeah, no, can we? going to that, Jussara, because as Anahy mentioned, right, the idea here from a suffering, the ego creating a suffering, as we incarnate, you said, Anahy, that we lose connections, right? Reincarnates, a new life, a new personality, etc. And you also mentioned fear is while we're craving this connection that I no longer have, I have to forge those connections. One of the mechanisms to cause that the ego causes suffering is part of our survival mechanism, which is fear. And you mentioned several types of fear. And I'm wondering, Josada, if we can also talk about the connection as it relates also the desire for connecting with the fear of abandonment, of rejection, of failure, right? Which also goes back to what we mentioned previously about the need to control. But can you talk a little bit about that aspect of it's no longer material, but it is completely related, as you mentioned, Anaí, to the ego's pride and arrogance, right? So I need to make sure I create this illusion, this camouflage, so that I can disguise my, say, deeper wounds that I may have. And I keep working on that, but it's all based on fear. What are your thoughts, Josara? Any?
I was thinking that, because of this
Mm,
pride, that we have, even
yeah.
though we may not be living or having wonderful and happy experiences at the moment,
Hmm.
being guided by the ego, according to how I view it, may make me believe that I am the best version of myself.
Mm.
And I guarantee to you, you're not. I'm not as well. But we have this idea. I mean, this is the best that I can be. That is the best that I can conquer. And being it through the different stages of life, being it through the different experiences, like we were saying, okay, I wanted to grow old, but I don't want to grow that old, or things like that. So I'm comfortable with, or I somehow, most of us, the majority of us, will have mechanisms to be able to deal with the burden, with the pain, with the suffering we are having, even if we are not happy with that. We may not
Mhm.
be happy with that. We may wish for better days, but somehow it's in the instinct of survival that I
Yeah.
have somehow to survive. And so, but you see, the unknown is something that we are normally just fearing.
Yeah.
So if someone says go through that way, I don't know that way. I know this way. It may not be nice, but I'm kind of already learning how to deal with those things. And,
Yeah.
and so there is this resistance. And this resistance of the ego, because at the same time we think, my ideas, my way of thinking, my way of living, even if my life is not just a bed of roses, or no
Mhm.
one is, we are going to immediately say that, justifying that I don't mind, doesn't have to be as well. We just deal with that. But I was thinking the other day, actually, this week, I was giving a talk about the times are changing. And one image that came to my mind, and I thought it was a very interesting example in terms of, this ego, this growth, this resistance is very similar when we are going through childhood, and like a baby, a child going through that phase where you lose a teeth, a tooth or teeth,
Mhm.
you know, and it hurts. Um, oh boy, it hurts. It causes you a lot of a lot of side effects, right?
Uh-huh.
you go through that the first time, you don't want to go through that again. I don't want to make you, I don't, I mean, there may be rewards because of that. I'm going to the to receive gifts, whatever, but I don't want to go through that pain again. And then people will come to you, but don't worry, a new tooth is going to grow. I don't want a new tooth. I'm happy with mine. Are you? Your face is going to change. You're really happy to be with baby teeth when your face is this big. And then there is this phase that I think is the phase. I mean, it can be considered the phase that we are living in, where I'm toothless. And you are going to tell the child, or the immature individual like ourselves, don't worry, a new one is coming. When? I don't see it. What I see is that I don't have a teeth at all, right? So this is the resistance. We have to go through those changes. They are painful. When we go through okay, I accept that it's going to be painful to, and when I say painful, I'm not meaning, I mean, it becomes more like a suffering, like we were talking about before, Marcia, when there is lack of conformism, of understanding that it's a phase that I have to go through. I make that pain into a suffering that is the pain of the soul, because an acceptance. And so I said, okay, I followed your advice. Let's say that we could have a say on that, right? I followed your advice. I let my old teeth go away, but I don't see anything happening now, right? It's where we are.
Yeah.
I immediately want to see a substitution. I don't understand that there is the moment, the process.
Yes.
And the process is one pushing the other. And we could think about that, all the new generations. We went through that. We are going to go through that in a different side of the story when we were younger, and now the youngster are going to be doing that to us. They pushing us. Come on, your ways. It's time for a new tooth, one that is reflect what you need now. And this is, I mean, trying to depicting an image is what I think we go through, this process. Okay, I understand, but it's hard. I don't see any changes. I don't see a good substitute. And then all of a sudden things change. So we have to give time for this process to happen within ourselves. We have to accept that we are more than just the eyes can see. And actually, Anahy, in terms of Descartes saying, and it's in spiritual term, in the spiritism, we would say, I am, well, he said, I am, therefore I think. I am. So it seems basically the same, but it's not. I am. So there is this moment of growth. And I think this is how we have to see, this passage and this growing of us. And I mean, I myself, I love to think that there is room for improvement and that I can be a much better version of myself each year, each time, each moment that represents a renovation. And that the more I understand and accept that, the closer I will be to fullness, to plenitude, to individuation, to being in balance with the self.
Yeah, and Jussara and Anahy, I'm thinking, I was just as you were talking beautifully so, and I love that metaphor or the image of a tooth pushing the new tooth pushing the old one, the adult tooth pushing the baby tooth out, and as painful, bleeding, etc., etc. It is a necessary step to be ready for the new, and that in between state, what we were and what we will be, is one that requires patience, and it requires just acceptance, right? But if I go back to some of the things that we're saying, if you don't mind, I was trying to remember some of the examples of how ego brings or creates suffering. And you mentioned suffering versus pain, but to me, it's all about what Joanna brings to us in terms of how the ego creates masks. And let's say, for example, well, I'm a good person, that's my mask. Or you, Jussara, you say, oh, the strong person, that's another mask. You're not it, Anahy, but let's pretend you were. You say, I'm the victim, I'm the controller, I'm the martyr, I'm the savior. There's so many of those identity, the false identity, that once we adopt it as who you are, and unfortunately, this is, you know, if anybody has not heard that yet, we're not what we create.
Oh, my,
And
I have to say something.
yeah, go ahead.
I I think that, and I think you're going to agree, the two of you,
Uh,
you know, being a bit older, I'm
yeah,
really in that phase where I would say to people, please don't label me. Not even
yes,
if you want to call me saint, don't label me.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
was thinking then, when I was thinking that, when you were saying, I thought about Jesus when the disciples came to him and said,
yeah,
you're good, you're the master and you're good. And he said, wait, yes, I am a master because I am a teacher, but
yeah.
good is God.
Oh, that is awesome. It's so
Not
important.
not
Yes.
even Jesus wanted a label.
Yeah.
And something that he thought, I mean, you don't know what you're talking about when you are talking about the ultimate model of goodness is not me.
Yes.
And well, sorry. I
No,
have
this is awesome. This is really important, right? And the flip side of it is, if let's say I I accept, and I think and I mentioned, right, I'm imprisoned by that false identity. um, and my ego is, just there's a handcuff here to say, Marcia, you're the good person, right? You're the good person, whatever the label may be. What does it mean to me, and why does it cause suffering? And to me, it is a question of, well, and now that I bought in the idea of being a good person, as just an example, now I need to watch and look at my performance, or how am I, because I'm not authentically good, how can I pretend to be good even when I'm not? Or what is it? But also, deep down, it's the question of, what is my emotional truth, right? What is this adopting to a label that I'm not there? As you mentioned, Jesus said, I'm not good, good is God, right? But how can following, adopting a label can actually prevent us from growing spiritually, right? For example, so many of us, and I know Joanna speaks a lot about it, so many of us um, have been required to have a public persona, a social persona, and it is exhausting, right? Because we are competing, we are comparing, we are personal brand identity as it is, and we need to be on cue, we need to be on point. And guess what? Because that's not what we are, it is just really too much for any one of us, and it stops us from growing. It handcuffs us, it imprisons us. So maybe we can wrap it up. And I don't know if I see Anna is looking at me like I don't know what you're talking about, but maybe we can wrap it up with how can we maybe finish our discussion today with what are the things that we should all be aware in this fight between, if you will, ego and self. How can we understand that perhaps those egoic suffering, source of suffering, uh, prevent our soul lessons?
Yeah, I was listening to you both, and well, it's a lot of stuff. We can certainly go to another podcast, but
Yeah,
you know that Jungians, we connect a lot with the image, right? And I
yeah,
was listening to Jussara talking about teeth and remembering when I was a child, and we would lose a tooth, right? And the feeling and all of that. But also came to my mind in the Middle Ages, the relics of the saints
yeah,
were teeth, fingernails, kind of pieces of hair, and things like that. Because, okay, if I have a relic, and I don't know you guys, but sometimes we have small, the baby tooth of our children kept there, a lock of hair or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right? Because it's cute and it reminds us when they were babies and things like that. But the thing is that, okay, if I had in the Middle Ages, if I had a relic of the saints, of a saint, a person that considered saint by whatever church I belong to, then a small piece of that person stays with me. That's it, it's a totally egoic thinking
Yes, yes.
because it's material, right? We have our memories, but most of all, we have the feelings and the knowledge of the heart. Wisdom is all about the knowledge of the heart. So when I was thinking also of Jesus, everybody is watching Chosen and things like that because wow, then the disciples come to, they are people like us in the TV series, for instance, we can connect to them. But when Jesus said something like that, I think he was teaching the disciples that the good, greater good, with
Hmm.
capital G, let's say, right? So is in the Creator, but we are part of the creation. So, but I think he was there, that teaching, sort of, because we are, of course, there are lots um, of um, of steps in the teaching of a higher soul like Jesus, right?
Hmm.
But for purpose of the discussion about the ego, I think he was trying to teach the disciples not to be in this false identity that Marcia was remembering that Joanna was not to connect thinking that, oh, I'm so good now, I'm a disciple of the master, because
Yeah.
to be archetype in terms of archetypes, if we are talking about a master, we are always talking about a student, a disciple. And if I am a disciple of that master that is so important, then I'm important too, because I'm disciple of that master, right? So I am a chosen
Hmm.
person. So I think Jesus was teaching them at that point to be humble in the sense that we are talking about, not think as our egos think that we are, the ego think it's the big stuff, wow, I'm great, I'm proud of. So to not connect to this identity, and I think he was helping them to understand that the greater good and all the love and that it's the source of creation belongs to the creator. But when he says also the Father and I are one, when he connects to the greater consciousness, the Christ consciousness with God, he was also being giving a non-dual teaching.
Yeah.
And when we say a non-dual from the perspective of depth psychology, we are talking about this proximity of the ego being very humble and connecting, searching and trying to connect and understanding that it has to get in conversation, let's say, with the higher self, because then there is a unity, then the opposites get closer and we get closer to God. That is the ultimate reality, the ultimate unity, right? So when we suffer a lot, to go back to suffering, to fear, I think we could say from the point of view of the ego, we are suffering because we lost the connection with our higher self, with our souls. And if we lose the connection, we lose the understanding of the purpose of suffering. Because as Marcia was saying, and Joanna says all the time, if we understand why we are facing, and that spiritist knowledge, right, Jussara,
Mhm.
understand why we are facing certain challenges. Why am I suffering? Because the ego is suffering. For the higher self, wow, I'm doing the job that I'm supposed to do. I'm going through these challenges to learn. For instance, when we lose somebody that we love so much, and we all have lost a lot of people. Of course, we are going to lose a lot of people that we love so much. But the ego is going to suffer, of course, because attachments, because, oh, I wanted so much to have to hug this person. We Brazilians love to hug and kiss. I'm sorry to tell people, but come that we're not going to hug anyone. Brazil, we're just going to hug if you people allow it. Some people get, oh, well, I don't go, I'm not going to the crazy Brazilians that hug and kiss all the time. But it's something that it's very pretty much in our culture. But okay, I wanted to hug so much that person that left the carnal world, the material world. But if I think with the understanding, if I help my ego, and I think with the understanding of my soul, my knowledge, my wisdom of the heart, that spiritist knowledge and Joanna helps us so much to get in contact with, to remember, right? That's all about inner journey, remembering who we truly are. Then if I do that, what happens is that I understand the purpose of this momentary separation, let's say. I feel happy for the loved one that has freed himself, herself of this experience, because he has done everything, or she, everything that he or she were supposed to learn to do, and they are free again. So I think that's so beautiful that we make again this connection of
Yes.
within ourselves, and we can at certain point, I do hope, as Jesus said, the Father and I are one, to have this knowledge from the heart that I belong to something so greater, so loving, the creator, the creation, right? And then I am one with the Father. Wow. I hope I get that. I said maybe billions of years in our time, but well.
Oh,
And
that's
just one
lovely.
last thing to
Yes,
say
yeah,
goodbye
go
to
ahead.
you. Joanna cites Jung, and I wrote that because I thought it would be useful for us to think. That Jung says that existence is only real when it is conscious for someone, and that human being's task is to become aware of the contents that press upwards coming from the unconscious, because the unconscious is connecting with Joanna. Joanna is citing Jung, because what she wants to tell us is in the unconscious is the spirit, as she says, Jung's self, the concept of the self is our spirit. So she's calling to us to make this connection again. Now, here, that's all about this transition phase that we are going, as collectively uh, becoming aware that we are so much more than that. Sorry, Marcia.
No, that's lovely. That's really lovely. Jussara, do you want to say any final words about this
Very
topic?
quickly, I
Yeah.
started by saying be open mind, and
Yes.
I'm going to end by saying be authentic, at least to yourself.
Oh, lovely, lovely, both of you. And for all of us, right, we're at the end. And just a reminder that today's conversation was an exploration about really the subtle ways that our ego creates suffering, and it creates through, yes, easy to understand, attachment to people, to things, to positions, to those masks, right, to those illusions, through fear and those false identities. And we also talked a little bit about how to distinguish perhaps between um, our illusions versus our lessons. And this is here, all of us, this invitation for us to learn to dissolve ego driven patterns so that we can awaken our higher state of consciousness. So, as a reminder, Joanna tells us pain never a punishment. It is this invitation to expand. Therefore, when we talk about suffering, we need to be aware of it, right? I wanted to enjoy to really thank you for joining us today, and to thank our sponsors, Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, AMI Brazil, and Anahy and Jussara. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Pleasure. Hope to see you soon.